the muskrat is at it again. If you thought Hasbro's business practices and layoffs were bad before, how much worse would Elon be? Yep, the richest ding-dong on the planet just set his sights on Dungeons & Dragons, following an outrageously bad take someone posted on Twitter. This video doesn't need to be a full-on history lesson, nor does it need to be a political commentary on the country I currently call home, so I'll do my best to keep my biases at bay. Instead, as is so often the case, the best place to start is at the beginning, because this tweet is actually the second of two made by X's equivalent to MySpace Tom. And like the first MySpace acquaintance forced upon us, I'm not convinced that Musk has any real friends. That said, he does have 200 million canaries in his Twitter coal mine. I'm not on Twitter, or X, or whatever it is now. And it's not because I don't like him or what he's doing, I've just never actually enjoyed the platform. But no one can deny that the man loves baby birding divisive issues right into the mouths of all those followers. So when he saw someone tee him up for another edition of the Woke Wars, he jumped at the chance to enrage the masses. One user a couple of weeks ago voiced grievances at WotC and Hasbro for their apparent erasure and slandering of D&D's creators, and Gary Gygax in specific, within a book about the making of the original D&D. Before we go any further, I think it's important for you to have some context. For as much as I'm grateful for the existence of D&D, we should all remember that people are inherently flawed. Gary Gygax and the creators of the TTRPG hobby we all love so much are no exception. George Washington owned slaves, Winston Churchill had racist ideals, and Elon Musk created whatever the hell this is. Gary Gygax proudly proclaimed himself to be sexist on more than one occasion. It's not a secret, and it's really not debatable. The most damning of these quotes came back in 1975 when he said, "Damn right I'm a sexist. It doesn't matter to me if women get paid as much as men. They can jolly well stay away from wargaming in droves for all I care." Yikes. Like I said, it's really not debatable. And it's not a misquote either. There's a much larger excerpt that gives some additional context and makes it even worse, if you can believe that. But that was 1975. There were other instances that showed he never really altered his views since then. Some as recent as 2005, 3 years before he passed away, when he said, "As a biological determinist, I am positive that most females do not play RPGs because of a difference in brain function. They play as well as males, but they do not achieve the same sense of satisfaction from playing." Now, here we are in the present day where some of the most talented players of this game are women. Laura Bailey, Ashley Johnson, Marisha Ray, Emily Axford, Siobhan Thompson, Abria Iyengar, my fellow YouTube creator Jenny D, and so many more. It certainly seems to me that women are not only able to enjoy the hobby, but they're damn good at playing the game. And it should come as no surprise that this level of blatant misogyny and biological determinism would get baked into the game co-created by people that held these deeply flawed beliefs. Why in the nine hells wouldn't you want D&D to be inclusive? You lose nothing by doing so. It's just gross, but I started playing with 5th edition. I admittedly didn't know much about any of this until somewhat recently. So when WotC decided to make a book about the creation of the original D&D, they had two options. They could either sweep history under the rug and pretend that these issues never existed, or they could be upfront about the origins of TTRPGs. I'm glad to say that they chose the latter. In the foreword of their book, they make note of the absence of female representation within the rules for original D&D, outside of mostly disrespectful portrayals of women, as well as other blemishes like the presence of slavery as a commercial transaction rather than a generational human tragedy. Truly, these kinds of issues were products of their time. There were many other famed and flawed arts and artists due to the general disposition of the average person back then. Much of the past is revealed to be unfavorable when viewed through the lens of the present. Though that is no excuse, it is entirely possible to hold respect for the creators of D&D while also understanding that they were, in fact, mortals with flaws like the rest of us. With this foundation laid, let's return to the matter at hand. A Twitter post that claims D&D's creators have been slandered and erased. First of all, if anything, the book is simply relaying the views that Gary Gygax proudly proclaimed were his own. If this is slander, then it is slander of his own making. Secondly, Gary and co-creator Dave Arneson are mentioned numerous times throughout the book, so saying WotC intends on erasing them is more than just a stretch. Now, I do think some credit needs to be given to the old veterans of D&D. Even as a relative newcomer, I can understand the constant perceived slights from Hasbro suggesting that their version of the game is best, referring to grognards in a generally negative light, and even failing to credit the original creators at the end of the most recent D&D movie. I attribute much of the frustration I see from true hardened fans to this death by 1,000 cuts. That doesn't mean that I side with Hasbro or WotC for that matter. I just happen to disagree this time. Because defending a person from character flaws that they literally projected for their entire life seems like a weird hill to die on. But we aren't here to talk about this random Twitter user whose other tweets showcase even more concerning views. We're here because Elon Musk decided to do exactly what he does best. Champion an issue he knows absolutely nothing about in order to further his own causes.
Go yourself. Is that clear?
Alright, I know I promised I wouldn't show my bias, but really, would you prefer that he knew the original post was wrong and still responded with, quote, "What the fuck is wrong with Hasbro and WotC? May they burn in hell." Seems like a pretty volatile response to the original tweet, right? Well, that's probably by design, and this should all look pretty familiar. At best, this is just Elon performing for his base of rage-baited followers, as he so often does, in order to keep them firmly locked in his weird echo chamber of the boy who cried woke. At worst, this pretty precisely mirrors his discourse on Twitter before he moved to purchase the platform, indicating that he may have real intention to do the same with Hasbro. So, I think it's finally time to consider what Dungeons & Dragons would look like under Musk, based on his track record with purchasing existing companies and taking credit for their work. Did I say that out loud? My bad. It won't happen again. Back in 2017, Musk hinted that he'd buy Twitter by asking publicly, "How much is it?" He eventually attempted to buy his way onto the company's board in 2022 with almost 10% of Twitter's shares. This possibility lasted only a short time before Elon published several critical opinions of Twitter and announced that he would not join. Instead, he made an offer to purchase the company in totality. I'll spare you the details because ultimately the offer was accepted even after Elon attempted to withdraw from the deal and caused a severe dip in stock price by attacking Twitter's reputation, ironically, on Twitter. He paid a whopping $44 billion, which, in truth, is a lot more than the company was probably worth at the time. Estimates showed at that point that the company was worth $30 billion, and now the estimate has dropped to about $15 billion. Nice. That in mind, Hasbro is worth just shy of $9 billion as of recording this video, so a buyout is very possible if Elon decides to pull the trigger. So let's assume he does. What happens next? The hypocrisy of it all may actually surprise you. First, I think it's reasonable to speculate that he'd ramp up the layoffs within the D&D offices that Hasbro was already so keen on.
The massive layoffs coming 1 week after Elon Musk's takeover of the social media giant. Thousands of workers getting the same email Friday morning, reading in part, "Today is your last working day at the company."
When Musk first purchased Twitter, he managed to drop the employee count from about 7,500 to just 2,000. All while destroying the culture and dismantling any benefits the remaining workers enjoyed. He required workers to come into the office and even installed beds in some of the office rooms as he encouraged a hardcore commitment from those under his charge, many of whom reportedly now work 80 hours per week. I don't know about you, but nothing quite fosters creative energy like being locked in a literal dungeon. And it's important to remember that these aren't just 9-to-5 workers. These creatives, artists, and writers are the people that actually play the game just like we do. For the most part, they aren't chasing dollar signs or sitting through corporate meetings about quarterly earnings. I personally would want those people to be taken care of, even more than they are now. Between his numerous fumbles on X.com's audio-only streams, Elon has even bragged with fellow billionaires about their successful attempts at union busting their poor workforce, which is illegal, by the way. But I imagine that some may argue that slimming down the company and trimming the fat would be a good thing in the end. After all, the original D&D was created by only a handful of guys, and Elon is definitely dedicated to honoring their legacy, right? I'm actually not so sure about that. While it is true that Musk was an early investor in Tesla, for example, he eventually bought out the company and then won a legal battle against the founder in order to claim that he was the founder instead. So much for honoring the geniuses of the past, huh? Though I do think he'd follow up on his promise to undo the social progress that has been so painstakingly made within the community. As I stated earlier, I think that's gross and indefensible, but again, there are some that would probably support that move. What I find incredibly short-sighted about this mentality is that not all, but many of those same individuals were lined up with torches and pitchforks when rumors circulated that D&D would be making a move to purely digital gameplay, complete with AI DMing and a subscription service to boot. You are absolutely kidding yourself if you think that Mr. Blue Checkmark himself wouldn't be head over heels for a money-hungry stunt like that. Listen, I'm no fan of Hasbro. They've not fostered good faith within the community, and they definitely don't deserve to be defended, but I am absolutely confident that Elon Musk would only make things worse for everyone. It's literally not rocket science. However, there's one big difference between his past ventures and his apparent appetite for D&D ownership, and it's what makes me not so worried about another sleazy corporate takeover. D&D and TTRPGs at large do not live as a business. Many are simply born as one. The systems we so love are ours to play as we please, and many of the rules now exist within an irrevocable Creative Commons license that can be used to make new homebrew, adventures, and characters. Just like fans of the older editions are perfectly within their rights to play their preferred flavor of D&D, so are we. What Elon Musk, me, or even the original creators think shouldn't stop you from enjoying these games. If you're interested in doing just that and moving past this latest bout of drama, I'd invite you to subscribe to the channel and check out some of the content that I publish weekly alongside our own live play streams. But until next time, go out there and make some chaos.